So yesterday we finished the study of form-sphere consciousness. So today we will study the formless-sphere consciousness. I hope you remember the formless sphere. Among the 31 planes of existence, there are 4 planes, the 4 highest planes that are called formless sphere. Formless means immaterial. So in that world, there is no rupa or no matter. These beings are only citta and cetasikas. So bodiless beings, we may call them. So only mind exists in these realms. And there are types of consciousness that lead to the rebirth in these realms, and also the types of consciousness, the same types of consciousness that arise in arahants. So the formless sphere consciousness is divided into 3: wholesome, resultant, and functional. And the wholesome consciousness of formless sphere are 4. The first is Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. Now the Pali name of this is long and it is difficult to remember. It is ākāsānañcāyatana. So we may just call the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. And then the word infinite space is to remind you that this type of consciousness has infinite space as object, or this consciousness takes the infinite space as object. Now in order to attain the Arūpāvacara jhana or formless jhana, a person must have already attained the 5 form jhanas, or the 5 Rūpāvacara jhanas. Now after getting or attaining the 5th Rūpāvacara jhana, he wanted to go on. Now in his case, he first tried to see fault in the physical body. So he thinks that because people have physical bodies, they come to blows, they come to killing each other and so on. If there were no physical body, there would be no such suffering in the world. So he hates matter or material body, and so he practices meditation with that disgust for matter. Now when he practices meditation to attain the formless jhana, first he enters into the 5th jhana, and then getting out of that jhana, he takes the object of that jhana. Now the object of 5th jhana is the counterpart sign. If he begins his practice with the earth kasina, the earth disk, then the mental image of that earth disk is the object of his 5th jhana. Now he takes that mental image of the disk as the object of his meditation, and he tries to expand that object to as much as he likes, even to the end of the world. And then after expanding that mental image in his mind, he just stops paying attention to that image. Instead, he pays attention to the space touched by or occupied by that image. So when he does not pay attention to the counterpart sign or mental image, then that mental image disappears and only the space remains. And he dwells on that space as space, space, or infinite space many times. And when the meditation becomes mature, then he will attain the first Arūpāvacara or formless jhana, or a type of consciousness will arise in his mind, and that type of consciousness will take that infinite space as object. So this is how a person practices meditation to attain the first formless jhana. Now, the second one is second Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. Now, after attaining the first Arūpāvacara jhana, he wants to go on. So he tries to practice meditation again, and this time he takes the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as the object of his meditation. So he takes the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness and contemplates on it as infinite consciousness, infinite consciousness, infinite consciousness, and so on. That consciousness is said to be infinite because it takes the infinite space as object. So in the case of second Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness, the object is infinite consciousness or the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. After getting the second Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness, he continues his meditation and he reaches the third Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. In order to gain third Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness, he takes the absence of first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as object. Now when he gets the second Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness, there is no first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. It has disappeared. So when he practices meditation to gain the third Arūpāvacara jhana, he takes that absence of the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as object. That absence is a concept. It is called nothingness. So nothingness of the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. That nothingness or that absence he takes as object for his meditation. So he may take that object as meditation and say to himself, nothing, there is nothing, there is nothing, something like that. And so when his meditation becomes mature, he gains the third Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. Again, he goes on practicing meditation for attaining the fourth Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. When he practices meditation for the fourth Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness, he takes the third Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as object. So he takes third Arūpāvacara jhana as object and he contemplates on it as it is peaceful, it is sublime, it is peaceful, it is sublime, and so on. And when his meditation becomes mature, then he reaches the fourth Arūpāvacara jhana, or fourth Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness arises in his mind. So, in this way, a yogi attains the jhanas that are called Arūpāvacara, because the attainment of these jhanas will enable him to be reborn in the Arūpāvacara realms or formless-sphere realms. Now the fourth is called neither perception nor non-perception. The names of these is very long names in Pali, and also the meaning is not easy to understand. The first Arūpāvacara jhana is called ākāsānañcāyatana. Ākāsa means space. Ākāsānañca means infinite space, and so the object of the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness is the infinite space. Infinite space means the counterpart sign of the fifth jhana consciousness. He takes the infinite space, which is obtained by removing the counterpart sign. Regarding the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness, when he practices meditation and he stops giving attention to the counterpart sign and then contemplating on the space occupied by the counterpart sign as infinite space, he is said to remove the counterpart sign. So removing the counterpart sign means just not paying attention to it and instead paying attention to the space occupied by that sign. So that is called removing in Abhidhamma term. The commentaries explain to us that removing does not mean like rolling the carpet or removing the pancake from the pan and so on. So here removing means just not paying attention to that object and instead paying attention to the space. And that space is called infinite space. Since space has no existence of its own, it is a concept. We call space, the void place we call space. And so that infinite space is a concept. And the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness takes that infinite space, which is concept, as object. But the second Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness takes the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as object. So here the objects of the first and the second are different. So the object of the first is infinite space, and the object of the second is the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. And the object of the third Arūpāvacara jhana is absence of first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. Again, it is a concept or nothingness of the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. And the fourth Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness takes the third Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as object. Now when it reaches the fourth stage, it becomes so subtle that it is very difficult to say that there is mental activity at all. There is no apparent mental activity when a yogi reaches the fourth Arūpāvacara jhana. But still there is a very subtle residue of mind or mental activity. That is why this fourth jhana is called neither perception nor non-perception. Perception here means not just perception, but also all mental activities. So it means neither mental activity nor non-mental activity. And it is explained with the simile in the commentaries. There were a monk and a novice, and there was some oil in the bowl of the monk, very little oil. When the monk asked the novice to give him the bowl, the novice said, "Bhante, there is oil in the bowl." Now the monk thought that there was much oil in the bowl, and so he said, "Okay, bring it to me. I want to fill my oil tube." Then the novice said, "Bhante, there is no oil, because there is not enough oil to fill the tube in the bowl." So first he said there is oil in the bowl, and then next he said there is no oil in the bowl. So in the same way, there is some kind of mental activity in this fourth Arūpāvacara jhana, but it is so subtle that it is almost non-existent. So this fourth Arūpāvacara jhana is called neither perception nor non-perception. Now here perception is used in the sense of all mental activities, not just perception. These four are called wholesome because they are accompanied by wholesome mental factors. If a person gets first Arūpāvacara jhana and he dies with this first Arūpāvacara jhana intact, then he will be reborn in the formless Brahma world. And the first consciousness that arises in that realm for him would be this first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. Since it is the result of the wholesome Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness, it is called first resultant Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. And if a person gets a second Arūpāvacara jhana here and he dies, then he will be reborn in the formless-sphere or in the formless Brahma world, and the first consciousness he experiences in that life would be the second Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as a result. If he gets third Arūpāvacara jhana here, then he will be reborn in the formless Brahma world, and his first consciousness there would be the result of the third Arūpāvacara wholesome consciousness here. And if he gets fourth Arūpāvacara jhana here, then he will be reborn in the fourth formless Brahma world, and the first consciousness will be the resultant of the fourth wholesome Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. So corresponding to the four wholesome consciousness of formless sphere, there are four resultant consciousness of formless sphere. And if an arahant experiences these four Arūpāvacara jhanas, then they are called functional. An arahant may attain any one of these jhanas or all four jhanas, but for him these jhanas will not give results. because he has eradicated ignorance and craving altogether, whatever he does, whatever an arahant does is just the doing. It has no karmic force. It does not give any results. So these same type of consciousness, when they arise in the mind of an arahant, so they are called functional consciousness. So there are 4 functional consciousness of formless sphere corresponding to the 4 wholesome consciousness of formless sphere. Now you may have noticed that no jhana factor, no factor of jhanas is mentioned here. In the case of Arūpāvacara jhanas, in the case of material jhanas, now you remember it is said, first jhana with vitaka, vichara, piti, sukha and ekaggata. But here, no factors are mentioned. Instead, the objects are mentioned. The first is called the consciousness that has infinite space as object. The second is called the consciousness that has infinite consciousness as object. And the third is called consciousness that has absence of first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as object. And the fourth is called consciousness that has the third Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as consciousness. So, with regard to formless sphere consciousness, the objects are mentioned and not the jhana factors. But a jhana must have jhana factors because, as I explained yesterday, jhana means a group of the jhana factors. So, how many jhana factors arise with these formless sphere consciousness? It is said that formless sphere consciousness are similar to the 5th form sphere consciousness. So you go back to 5th form sphere consciousness and find out how many jhana factors arise with 5th jhana consciousness. How many jhana factors? Only 2 jhana factors, and they are upekha and ekaggata. So, with regard to factors of jhana, all these 12 formless sphere consciousnesses are accompanied by 2 jhana factors. They are upekha or neutral feeling and ekaggata, one-pointedness of mind. Now, the difference between the form sphere consciousness and formless sphere consciousness is that in order to get the higher jhanas in form sphere consciousness, you have to overcome or surmount the jhana factors. That means you have to eliminate the jhana factors. So in order to get the second jhana, you have to eliminate the vitaka, the first jhana factor. In order to get the third jhana, you have to eliminate one more, vichara. And in order to get the 4th jhana, you eliminate piti and so on. So by eliminating the jhana factors, you get the higher jhanas. And that eliminating is called surmounting in Abhidhamma. But in the formless sphere consciousness, there are only 2 jhana factors, every one of these 12 types of consciousness has 2 jhana factors. And these 2 jhana factors cannot be surmounted. So instead of surmounting the jhana factors here in the formless-sphere consciousness, they are said to surmount the object. So every type of formless-sphere consciousness has 2 kinds of objects. Objects taken and objects surmounted, or objects transcended. So at the bottom of the page you see those. So the object taken by first Arūpāvacara jhana is infinite space. And the object it surmounts is the counterpart sign. Because the yogi does not pay attention to counterpart sign, and that means he has surmounted the counterpart sign. Now the second Arūpāvacara jhana takes first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as object, and it surmounts the infinite space. And the third Arūpāvacara jhana takes absence of first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as object, and it surmounts the first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. And the fourth Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness takes the third Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness as object, and it surmounts the absence of first Arūpāvacara jhana consciousness. So there are 2 sets of 4 objects. One set is the set of the objects taken, and the other is the set of objects that are surmounted in order to get the Arūpāvacara jhanas. Now, it is said in our books that those who attain Arūpāvacara jhanas are those who hate matter, who hate body. And actually their view is not correct. They think that because of this body we suffer, but even without the physical body there is still suffering, because suffering means being oppressed by arising and disappearing. Now there is always arising and disappearing even though there is no matter or no body. But these people think that they will be happy, they will experience happiness if they are without physical body. But what about noble persons? What about those who have gained enlightenment? What about those who have become Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami and Arhants? They may also practice meditation to get these jhanas. Since they are noble persons, since they are already enlightened persons, they may not have that notion that if they were without physical body, there would be no suffering for them. This is not explained in the books, and so I don't know the answer to this problem. I think that when noble persons try to get this jhana, they try to get this jhana not for the sake of this jhana only. They have something higher than this in mind, and that is what is called the attainment of cessation. Now, attainment of cessation means attainment of cessation of mental activity altogether. In Pali it is called Nirodha Samapatti. And it is said that Nirodha Samapatti can be attained only by anagamis or non-returners and Arahants. And those Anagamis and Arahants who have attained all Rūpāvacara and Arūpāvacara jhanas. So when they attain this cessation, then all mental activities are temporarily suspended. So during the attainment of cessation, they may be like statues. They have no mental activity. Only the body goes on. But it is said that when they are without mental activity, they have less suffering. So it is a kind of enjoying the peacefulness that the non-returners and arahants get into this kind of attainment. And this kind of attainment can be entered into only by those who have attained all 9 jhanas, all 5 Rūpāvacara jhanas and 4 Arūpāvacara jhanas. I think it is for that purpose that the noble persons, especially the non-returners and arahants, try to get the 4 Arūpāvacara jhanas. Now, we have studied the different types of jhana consciousness. Form jhana and formless jhana, or material jhana and immaterial jhana. The form jhana consciousness are 15 and formless jhana consciousness are 12. And when we add these together, we get 27. And these 27 are called sublime types of consciousness. In Pali, they are called Mahagata. Later, you will see the chart. Now, the Rūpāvacara jhanas. Now, first jhana, accompanied by what? By what feeling? Rūpāvacara first jhana, accompanied by joy. And second jhana, same. Third jhana, same. Fourth jhana, same. Fifth jhana, by indifference or neutral feeling. Then what about the formless sphere consciousness? These formless sphere consciousness, since they resemble the 5th jhana, they are all accompanied by neutral feeling. So there is no formless sphere consciousness that is accompanied by joy. Now if you look at the chart, now Rūpāvacara Cittas 15. So they are above shown in 3 columns, and the first 4 are colored red and the last one blue. So the first 4 are accompanied by joy, and the last ones are accompanied by indifference or neutral feeling. But all the 12 Arūpāvacara Cittas, or all the 12 formless sphere Cittas, are accompanied by neutral feeling or upekkha. And Rūpāvacara Cittas and Arūpāvacara Cittas are collectively called Mahagata or sublime Cittas. They are jhana Cittas, and they are higher than the Kāmavacara Cittas or sense sphere consciousness. Now up to now we have studied how many types of consciousness? 12 akusala consciousness, 18 ahituka or rootless consciousness, 24 Kāmavacara sobhana or beautiful consciousness, and then Rūpāvacara consciousness and Arūpāvacara consciousness, altogether 81. Now these 81 types of consciousness are called mundane. In Pali they are called Lokiya Cittas, mundane consciousness. They belong to this world. So there are 81 types of consciousness that belong to the world. That belong to the world means that belong to the 5 aggregates of clinging. Now there are 2 more categories of consciousness. And these types of consciousness are called Lokuttara Cittas. Lokuttara means, Loka means the world means the 5 aggregates of clinging, and Uttara means transcending. So that which transcends the world of 5 aggregates are called Lokuttara. So there are 8 Lokuttara Cittas, and we will study this now. And after we study the all the Cittas, then we will go back to this chart with dots and find out the different types of consciousness accompanied by joy, indifference, and so on. So now we come to the Lokuttara Cittas. So Lokuttara Cittas are called supramundane consciousness. And there are only 2 categories in supramundane consciousness: wholesome and resultant, and no functional consciousness in this group. And there are 4 wholesome supramundane consciousness and 4 resultant supramundane consciousness. Again, supramundane means those that go beyond the world, that are out of the world, so to say. And they are, number 1, first path consciousness. In Pali, they are called Sotapatti Magga, of the stream entrant. Now, this consciousness can be attained only by the practice of vipassana meditation. Suppose a person practices vipassana meditation, and he will go through different stages of vipassana knowledge, actually 10 or 12. So he goes through these stages of vipassana knowledge one by one, and when his vipassana becomes matured, then a type of consciousness will arise in his mind. And that type of consciousness is the one that he has never experienced before in his life. And that consciousness takes nibbana as object. And at the same time, it eradicates some mental defilements. And that type of consciousness is called path consciousness, or in Pali, Magga consciousness. When a person reaches this stage, he is called a stream entrant, or Sotapanna. The state of a Sotapanna is called Sotapatti. That means stream entering or stream reaching. And the person is called Sotapanna, stream entrant. Now here, stream means the stream of the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path means the group of 8 mental factors, beginning with right understanding. I hope you all are familiar with the 8 factors of the path. These 8 factors of the path that arise simultaneously with the path consciousness are called stream here, or current. These 8 factors of path are called stream because once a person has got into this stream, he is sure to reach Nibbana. If something gets into the stream of a river or in the current of a river, then the current will carry it surely until it reaches the ocean. So once a thing is in the current, then it is sure to reach the ocean. In the same way, once a person reaches the stream, here the Noble Eightfold Path, he is sure to get out of the round of birth and death, or to get out of this samsara. So such a person is called a Sotapanna. And at the first stage of enlightenment, he eradicates 2 mental defilements. One is the wrong view and the other is doubt. So a person who has reached the first stage of enlightenment, who has attained the first path consciousness, eradicates doubt and wrong view from his mind, so that they do not arise in his mind anymore. Doubt means doubt about the Buddha, doubt about the enlightenment of the Buddha, doubt about the teachings, doubt about the Sangha, doubt about the practice, doubt about the dependent origination, and so on. So these are called doubts. So a person who has reached the first stage of enlightenment will have no doubts about the Buddha and so on. And also he is said to eradicate the wrong view that there is a self, there is a body. So he is able to discard, or he is able to eradicate these 2 mental defilements when he reaches the first stage of enlightenment. People talk about enlightenment very freely, but I wonder if they really know what enlightenment is when they say enlightenment. According to the teachings of Abhidhamma, enlightenment means the arising of this path consciousness in the mind of a meditator and the eradication of some mental defilements. So if a person has gained enlightenment, he must have eradicated some or all of the mental defilements. So if a person claims to have attained any one of the stages of enlightenment, then he must have eradicated some mental defilements. And when a person reaches the first stage of enlightenment, it is said that he will never break the 5 precepts. He will keep his 5 precepts pure. So we can judge from his sila that whether he is a real Sotapanna or not. If he is still capable of breaking any one of the 5 precepts, then we can conclude that he is not yet a Sotapanna. So it is mentioned in the books that a Sotapanna keeps the 5 precepts intact, even at the risk of his life. He will avoid breaking these rules. Even if he is reborn and he is a child, he will not kill any living beings. Even if he is given 2 fishes, one alive and one dead, then he will pick up the dead one and not the alive one for eating. So, a person who has become a Sotapanna is said to keep his moral precepts pure, and he has eradicated the 2 mental defilements, doubt and wrong view. Now, with regard to what are called fetters, he eradicates the wrong view about the rites and rituals, or about the practices of some creatures. Now, during the time of the Buddha, there were people who believed that if they behave like animals, then they will get free from mental defilements. So they would go like a dog, or sleep like a dog, eat like a dog, and so on. So there are many such people during the time of the Buddha, and some believe that if they behave like cattle, if they behave like an ox and so on, they will get free from mental defilements, and they practice or they behave in that way, eating like cattle or sleeping like cattle and so on. So these are called in Pali Silabbata. Sila means, we can call it habit. So the habit or the behavior or living style of some animals. So if a person believes that by behaving like a dog he can attain enlightenment, by behaving like an ox he can attain enlightenment, then he has this kind of wrong view. A Sotapanna has eradicated also this kind of wrong view. So a Sotapanna will never take those practices to be a way to gain enlightenment, to be a way to get out of this samsara. So the abandoning of the belief in rite and rituals means abandoning the notion that these practices will lead to freedom from mental defilement and freedom from suffering. Now, what about just by practicing dana we can attain enlightenment? If we believe in this way, what will it be? So we believe just by practicing dana we can attain nibbana. Just by practicing sila we can attain nibbana. It may be that kind of wrong view, because by dana alone we cannot attain nibbana, and by sila alone we cannot attain nibbana. Only by practice of vipassana meditation can we attain nibbana. So if you think that dana alone can get you to nibbana, then you have this kind of wrong view. Although the practice of dana is encouraged in the teachings of the Buddha, and practice of sila also. There are some practices that people think are the rites and rituals. Now, when you do some meritorious deed, don't you pour water? And some people said this is also silabbata, so you don't do it. But I don't think so. If you think that this is the real way to Nibbana, it may be a wrong view for you. But if you don't take it as the way to Nibbana, but it is just a symbolism that you follow when you do meritorious deed, that is okay. And then there are some people who think that chanting paritas and so on are also a silabhata. But I don't think so, because I chant every day. I chant every day for the protection and for my peace of mind. I don't take it to be the way to Nibbana. So I think it is all right to do the chanting or to listen to the chanting. Okay, so a Sotapanna can or does eradicate this kind of wrong view. Now, after becoming a Sotapanna, he may be satisfied with just that attainment and he may not practice anymore. If he does not practice anymore and remain a Sotapanna, then he will be reborn in this samsara for how many lives? At a maximum of 7 lives. So in the 7th life, he will surely become an arahant. So he has only 7 more lives to go. That means if he does not practice more, if he stops with the attainment of stream entry. But after becoming a stream entrant, he practices meditation again, then he can reach the 2nd stage. So in order to reach the 2nd stage, he has to practice vipassana meditation again. And he will go through the different stages of vipassana knowledge, and when his vipassana becomes mature, then a 2nd path consciousness will arise in his mind. So when that 2nd path consciousness arises in his mind, he is said to have reached the 2nd stage of enlightenment. And he is called a once returner. That means he will come back to this human life only once. And that means if he does not practice more and reach the 3rd stage or 4th stage. So if he remain as a once returner, then he will be reborn in the world of devas one time, and then he will come back to this human world. That means he will be reborn again in this human world, and then he will attain arahantship in that life. So once returner means he goes to, by way of rebirth, he goes to another life or another world and then comes back here and he reaches arahantship in that life. Once returner does not eradicate mental defilements, but he attenuates, he makes weaker the remaining mental defilements. Now there are mental defilements that can lead one to rebirth in 4 states of misery, rebirth in hell, rebirth in animal kingdom and so on. And there are other mental defilements that do not lead to rebirth in these woeful states, but that give results during lifetime, unhappy or displeasurable results during lifetime. Now, a Sotapanna, the first person, a Sotapanna eradicates doubt and wrong view. But what about other mental defilements? He eradicates the other mental defilements that can lead him to rebirth in 4 states of misery. Although he does not eradicate the other mental defilements altogether, he eradicates the potential of the mental defilements that can lead to rebirth in four woeful states. Now, a one's returner can further weaken these mental defilements. Now, for example, a one's returner still has dosa, but his dosa may be very mild, not like our dosa. Our dosa may lead us to rebirth in four woeful states, but the dosa of a one's returner or even the dosa of the stream entrant will not lead him to rebirth in four woeful states. They are not strong enough to lead them to rebirth in four woeful states. Although one's returner does not eradicate any more mental defilements, he makes the remaining mental defilements weaker. And he has only two more rebirths. One's returner means he goes to another life, another rebirth, and then comes back to this rebirth. So actually he has only two more rebirths. And if he practices again, then he will reach the third stage of enlightenment, or the third path consciousness will arise in him, and that third path consciousness, when it arises, takes nibbana as object and eradicates some more mental defilements. Now, at the third stage, he is called a non-returner. So a non-returner eradicates sensual desire and ill will or anger altogether. He has no more desire for sense objects. He has no more desire to enjoy, say, human pleasures or heavenly pleasures. And also he has no anger, so he will never get angry. And since fear is included in anger, he will not fear anything. And he is called non-returner because he will not come back by way of rebirth to this world. Suppose a person reaches the third stage of enlightenment. And when he dies, he will not be reborn again in this world, but he will be reborn in the world of Brahmas. The world of Brahmas called pure abodes. That means the abode of pure beings. So a non-returner eradicates some more mental defilements. Now what are these? Sensual desire and ill will or anger. Now, although he has eradicated sensual desire, he still has some desires left. Desire for rebirth in the Brahma worlds. He has not eradicated that desire. So that is why after death he is reborn in the world of Brahmas. And if he practices again, and when his vipassana becomes mature, then he will gain the fourth stage of enlightenment, or the fourth path consciousness will arise in his mind. And at that time, he is called an arahant. Now, arahant means a person who is worthy to accept offerings, or an arahant is a person who has eradicated all mental defilements. So when a person becomes an arahant, he eradicates all the remaining mental defilements. So no mental defilements remain uneradicated. An arahant is totally free from mental defilements. So an arahant is incapable of being attached to anything, incapable of desire for anything, incapable of getting angry, incapable of jealousy, envy, and so on. So the mind of an arahant is totally pure from the mental defilements, and these mental defilements will not arise in his mind again anymore. Now, Buddhas also eradicate mental defilements. Buddhas are also persons who have eradicated all mental defilements. What is the difference between eradication of mental defilements of arahants and the Buddha? There is difference, right? So it is said that when arahants eradicate mental defilements, they are not able to eradicate what is called habit. In Pali it is called vasana. So that habit, it is not real mental defilements, but some effect of mental defilements. So such habits, sometimes they may be bad habits, the arahants are not able to eradicate. Only the Buddhas are able to do that. So when a person becomes a Buddha, he is able to eradicate mental defilements and also the habits and all that are connected with mental defilements. But an arahant, although he eradicates all mental defilements, is unable to eradicate that habitual behavior or something like that. So that is the difference of eradication of mental defilements between arahants and the Buddhas. But both are totally free from mental defilements. So these are the four types of path consciousness, and these path consciousness arise at the moment of enlightenment. So enlightenment means the arising of any one of these four path consciousness and then eradication of mental defilements. Okay, we'll have a break.